As a recruiter, a big part of my job is obviously doing interviews and obviously preparing candidates for interviews as well. And in this episode, I wanted to talk a little bit about some things that you may not realize that you are doing in interviews that are almost pushing you away in that job hunting process. So, step one, when you're actually doing your interviews, there's just too much rambling, okay? A big thing that all recruiters look for and all hiring managers are desperate to have in somebody is an effective communicator, okay? Especially if you're going in a role where you're going to be representing the company and speaking to clients and talking to new customers and trying to build, new business for the company. A big power that you're going to have to possess is the ability to communicate and the ability to get to the point as short and as sharp as possible, okay? The unfortunate truth is, guys, too much rambling is going to send you out of that job interview process, okay? Recruiters are not going to know exactly what their answers are for you, and businesses are not going to know what they're actually going to get out of you because there's just too much talking, there's just too much irrelevant information being put forward, and the inability to get an answer within 90 seconds is really going to cost you. Okay, so that's one thing you need to be consciously making the effort of changing is how you deliver your answers and what information you are giving in that time period. Okay, as a recruiter myself, particularly in my first job in recruitment, after interviewing a candidate, when I would tell my colleagues and say, yep, I really liked them, the interview went well, blah, 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 number one question they would ask is, how is their communication? Okay, communication is pivotal because at the end of the day, how that person gets their ideas across, how they represent the company, how they can speak with people internally, it all counts. Okay, and the only data they're going to have about you to be able to, to say yes, they have this or not, is not by when you're putting great communication or communication as a strength in your resume. They're going to judge it on how you talk in an interview. Okay, so your ability to be short and concise with valuable information as quick as possible is really going to help you progress that next round and stand out as much as possible as well. Okay. My next point is oversharing of useless information. Now, this does tie into rambling, but it is genuinely its own point as well. Okay, particularly when you're asked points about, or asked questions about, tell me about a time that you achieved this, or tell me a time you were in a scenario and did this, or tell me about your best achievement, whatever it is. People spend way too much time literally telling the whole story like it's a Netflix series from start to finish. You don't need to do that. You don't need to explain all the other contributing factors that led to that moment. You just need to talk about the context of the situation, what the issue was, what you did, and what was the outcome. Okay? That's it. You can get that done genuinely in 90 to 120 seconds. Okay? For example, when I was doing a job interview for my first job, when I was actually, being the candidate, I had to tell a story about a time that it was something about how I go in stressful situations, and I had to tell a story. Basically, I took about 5 or 6 minutes to get the story across. And after the interview, because I was going through so many interviews at the time, I actually asked the person that ended up hiring me, and he ended up being my colleague. I asked him, I said, hey, look, I just did my interview with you. Obviously, you're not going to tell me if I progressed or not to the next stage, but is there anything that I can do differently or anything that, I can improve on for my next interview? And he said, look, everything you answered was very good. I can tell there's definitely alignment with you in the position. However, your power story or, the story about how you got your point across or how, the situational question, it took too long. It took way too much time and there's too much waffling, okay? You're going to lose people very quickly when you talk like that. Okay, and that was always the number one piece of advice that I would always give to candidates once I got into a recruitment position who were asking me, on interview tips. It was always that ability when telling a story to just wrap it up as quick as possible. Okay, all you need to provide is the context of the situation, what the issue was, how you fixed it, and then move on. What was the outcome? Okay, so your ability to get rid of that useless information and providing all these irrelevant facts and all these irrelevant people, it doesn't matter, and it's costing you time and it's costing their attention. Okay, it's costing their attention. So when you're in these situational questions, think about that consciously moving forward. All you have to be thinking about, guys, is when you're going into a job interview, you are selling yourself. Okay, pretend you are a salesman talking about the value that you are going to bring to the company. Okay, when you're talking about Bob and Michael and James and Steve and all these different people in the story, you're not selling yourself, you're not selling your value. Okay, so get that principle into your head as quick as possible and make that conscious change as soon as possible. Okay. My third and final point is that you are directionless, okay? half the time you are applying for jobs that you don't care about, you don't even know what they do, and you don't even know where it's going to take you in 5 years' time. Okay, I think the biggest issue, guys, in this job market nowadays is that because it is so competitive, because every single person has the exact same degree, okay, people don't know what they want to do. So people are just applying for anything and everything, even things that are not relative to their degree, even things that their degree they don't even need to do this job. They're still applying just because they'd rather have a job over no job. They'd rather have a job that they hate than no job. Okay, so at the end of the day, you're applying for all these jobs that you just don't give a crap about, and that reflects in interviews so easily. Okay, at my new job now, my colleague who did the hiring process with me, he came into the lunchroom once and we were eating lunch together, and he's like, "Oh, I just spoke to this candidate because he's hiring another person for the exact role that I'm doing." And he said, look, you set the bar very high. And obviously he's kind of joking, of course, but he just said, like when he was talking seriously, he was saying, with you, like when you were talking, we knew what you wanted, we knew what your end goal was, and we knew that we could align with that, and bang, we knew what the next steps were. All these other people, they don't really know what they want to do. They're just kind of getting feelers. They're just asking random questions, blah, blah, blah. And it's not leading to anything productive because they don't know what they actually want. So I don't know how I can work with them. I think that's very important. You guys need to understand as well, the number one thing that people look for when hiring somebody is your risk capacity. Okay, they want to make sure that you're not going to leave after 2 or 3 weeks when the new shiny toy comes out. Okay, so you need to make sure that you have that direction as soon as possible. You need to be able, when you're applying for these jobs, to effectively tell them why you want the position and how that's going to help you elevate your career moving forward. Okay, hope you guys got some value from this video. If you guys did, there is a link in the bio, link in my bio, for a free 30-minute consultation. If you want to work with me on a one-to-one level, feel free to click the link and book in for a chat, and we can happily align your goals and see how we can work together moving forward. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Take care. See you guys next time.